What's up? Welcome into a Friday Baseball Insiders, where we separate the yapping from reality. I am your host, Adam Weinrib. We're going 3 times a week until the trade deadline, and joining me, as always, is Fansided MLB Insider Robert Murray, back from the All Star festivities in his home and ready to talk about some teams who could pivot this deadline, the latest in rumors, and again, help me sort out some fact from fiction. Robert, it's a beautiful Friday. A couple of people are in the comments already saying that they're first. Only one of them is. That's how math works. How you doing?
I'm great, man. It feels good to be back in Arizona because let me tell you, the day that I landed, I had like a 7 a.m. flight, and I landed at super early in the morning, and I was just gassed from All-Star festivities. I ended up falling asleep the day that I landed at like 6 p.m. and woke up the next morning at 5:30 in the morning. So I was caught up on my sleep, feeling good, making a lot of calls. It's trade deadline season, baby. Now that the draft is officially behind us, along with the All-Star game, it's trade season. And I am very here for it. My phone is lighting up like a Christmas tree already. And let's break it all down today. Adam Weinrib, though, but how are you?
I am good. Going to head out and see the Foo Fighters tonight. Love that band. They rock. They rock potentially as much as the Chicago White Sox can rock this trade deadline. But before we get into all that good stuff, baseball fans, what's going on? DraftKings is here. Ding dong, DraftKings time. They're offering a fantastic sign-up bonus for new users, which is crazy because they're never doing that. New customers can place a $5 first bet on any sport to instantly claim $150 in bonus bets when you sign up with our code BaseballInsider. Best part is you'll receive your rewards even if your first bet loses. Using our code BaseballInsider not only gets you these bonuses, but it also directly supports our podcast. If you've been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure to use the code BaseballInsider to maximize your first bets. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. And if you're the kind of person who's here on a Friday, if you're the kind of person who's here riding with us to the trade deadline, may I recommend joining us in the Discord channel, which is where you can ask us questions, us being Robert and myself. But let's be honest, if you ask me questions, I'll probably direct you to Robert. You get a private channel between shows, which there's less time between shows now that we're doing 3 a week. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday shows now until the deadline. Join us in between the shows in the Discord channel. You can join at the rumor mill level or at the all-star tier. We'd love to hear from you. You also get priority responses in the comment section during these streams. So a joy to see all of you. Shout out to everybody who showed up today. If you got questions, we are happy to answer them. But Robert, we're going to talk about a few teams that I've been hearing a lot about and a few teams that seem like they could potentially, obviously we don't have a lot. We don't have any more wins and losses since the last time we spoke. So none of the borderline sellers are any closer. We're just going by what we've heard. I've got some rumors that may or may not pass the smell test about teams that could pivot and change the deadline. So I'm going to run them by you one at a time. Obviously, we will also take questions. Kind of a packed Friday.
No, that we will. I also realized I forgot to tweet the link to the show. So I just literally did that just now. So my apologies for not tweeting the link to the show. But we do have some teams that could change things here with the trade deadline. We also have a lot of yapping going on. It's yapping season, to say the least. We've seen some reports that are quite out there. Come on, Bert, I definitely deserve that one. My mistake. I'm the worst for forgetting to put the tweet out, but lo and behold, I remember just in time. So thank goodness for that. But should we just dive right into these teams who might end up kind of changing things here at the deadline? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. Sorry, I'm getting a call from DraftKings. They're furious that you tweeted the link after I read their ad. Anyway, again, the code is Baseball Insider. It's on the screen the whole time. So if you missed me randomly yapping about how great DraftKings is, you can see it right there at the bottom. Another reminder to the stuff that we're going to have to be dealing with for the next 10 days or so. You're going to get tweets that are just like, player would be a good fit for team. That doesn't necessarily mean that the team and the player are talking and the two teams are in conversation. It doesn't really mean anything. You might get tweets about how teams have made trades with each other in the past. It's interesting context. Also doesn't necessarily mean that anything is live and happening right now. Just kind of, these are the things that you have to, steer through on your little trade deadline boat in order to get to the real info.
No, for sure. Also, one thing I want to clarify too before we dive truly into this is like we'll see those tweets about so and so is a good fit for this, and we'll also see tweets saying that so and so teams have had discussions about a certain player.
Yeah.
I can confidently tell you, every team is having those discussions. If your team is not having those discussions, that is more newsworthy than your team having some sort of discussions. The real news is when the conversations become serious or when it becomes clear a certain player is about to be moved. So I would not pay too much attention or take too much merit into the reports of so-and-so is talking to so-and-so about whatever. Those conversations happen a lot. So, but I guess without further ado, let's dive into what could end up changing the deadline here a little bit.
Yes, and I want to start with a team that we've talked about in the past, but there was a little more concrete information this week between shows. The Tampa Bay Rays floating right around 500, obviously still in the wild card race because basically everybody is, but the latest from Andy Martino was that they are scouting the Yankees heavily. They've been in Tampa watching the Yankees prospects on the Tampa Tarpons. Again, does that mean they're scouting the Yankees heavily or they're just in Tampa and want to catch some minor league baseball, dollar dog night, maybe it's bark in the park, I don't know. Either way, Rays scouts have been at the Tarpons. Randy Rosarena has felt like a Dodgers fit seemingly forever. There is a wide breadth of talent in Tampa. Garrett Clevenger, Brandon Lau, someone we've mentioned in this pod a lot, Yandy Diaz, Isaac Paredes reportedly available, Zach Eflin, a favorite of the baseball insiders. All those people could still be available if the Rays decide to make a move. What is the latest? I'm just going to gauge, give me the pulse on each team I mentioned. What's your pulse on the Rays and that wide group of names I just threw out there?
Yeah, I think we've already seen the Rays make a couple of trades here and trading some players off of their major league roster. I don't think it's going to end up being a case where it's a full-blown sell by them. So all the players listed, they're going to get interest for sure, but I would be very surprised if they traded all of them or even the majority of those players. I do think a player who makes a lot of sense, though, that has a realistic chance of being moved is Zach Eflin. You look at him, he's a very dependable starting pitcher. It was a good signing by the Rays. He signed to an affordable number for next year, which makes him tradable. And there's going to be plenty of interest, especially with so few starting pitchers out in the market right now. So I think the interest is going to be there for sure. I do think a team that makes a whole lot of sense for Zach Eflin would actually be the St. Louis Cardinals. They do need another starting pitcher. I expect them to add one eventually. And I had somebody who has been around Eflin before tell me that if he ended up going to St. Louis, he could end up being their new version of Adam Wainwright. I mean, he's not necessarily a perfect comp, but he could end up being a dependable long-term option for them if they do indeed try to extend him. So I think that's one of the many teams that makes sense for Eflin, and I would not be surprised at all if he's moved between now and the July 30th deadline.
Going on a Cardinals podcast tomorrow, so just filed that one in the old pocket.
Make it happen.
Yeah, I love the all the chaos that the Rays could potentially sow at this deadline. I don't think I can make it past the second team listed here without talking about the Tigers, just because somewhere in the realm between yapping and reality, we finally got an injection of Tarek Skubal discussion during the All-Star break. Because when else do you got, who else are you going to talk about during the All-Star game? Skubal maybe had my favorite moment of the All-Star game too, where they tried to talk to him on the headset and they're like, "Can you hear us?" And he was like, "Hey guys, can you hear me? It's extremely loud and I'm trying to pitch." And they were like, "Haha, okay." Then they asked him some questions. He just did not respond because I think he probably turned it off. But what he didn't turn off was his electric fastball. And Tom Verducci, during the break of SI, said, "We've always connected the Dodgers and Orioles to Skubal just because, hey, that's the best talent on the market. Hey, those are the teams. The Dodgers are the most aggressive team with a great farm. The Orioles have the best prospect collection of anybody right now. So if anyone's going to overwhelm the Tigers, it's them." But Verducci stepped it up a notch by basically saying those two teams are putting prospect packages together. Tigers say they're not interested, but also the Tiger source said, quote, "Everything has a price." This is a really tough one to see getting done at any point during this next 10-day stretch. But it was a concrete step forward that was rumored during that conversation. So wanted to get your pulse on the Tigers and specifically Skubal.
I would be very surprised if Skubal was traded. He is AL Cy Young candidate. He's signed for he's controllable. He's making an affordable amount of money this year, and he will be next year and the year after that as well. I have a very hard time seeing the Tigers moving him now. I do understand the logic behind the rumors, because the Tigers, they're not one piece away. They're not two pieces away. Like if you trade Skubal now, especially considering the starting pitching market, you could end up getting an absolute haul for him. He'd instantly be the number one starting pitcher available ahead of Garrett Crochet. And it could end up really setting them up long-term in terms of building this team and having foundational pieces. I just don't expect him to do that. The price, from what I've gathered, is very, very high, which is pretty standard for what the Tigers do. I don't see any team matching it. I just don't see the Tigers moving Skubal. I'd be really surprised. I think Jack Flaherty is he's a strong candidate. Would be pretty stunning if he wasn't moved. So I think Flaherty is the one to watch in Detroit and not Skubal. So I understand the trade talk for sure. I mean, it's bound to happen, especially considering the market's kind of not active right now, and you got to figure out who might end up being a surprise player available. But I would be really surprised if Skubal was moved.
That does bring me to the other side of the equation, though, because if the O's are building a package for Skubal, whether it's going to fall on deaf ears or not, they're also building a package for Garrett Crochet, a fit that feels more natural as the days go by. There was a Pat Ragazzo of SI reported yesterday as well that the Dodgers are still floating around Crochet and Robert Jr., and that the White Sox might prefer to package the two of them. That doesn't make much sense to me if you were trying to maximize value. But either way, I guess double-pronged question here. The Orioles, are they drawing closer and maybe tempting the White Sox on Crochet? And what is the deal with this package deal that was rumored last night?
Yeah, I don't think the Orioles or any team in particular is closer to enticing the White Sox to move Crochet. Like I think Crochet in the end has a better chance than not of being moved, but nothing is close to my knowledge, at least as of this point. But I think the Orioles make so much sense for Crochet. They obviously need another starting pitcher. And obviously Corbin Burns will be a free agent at the end of the year. They also lost Kyle Bradish for the remainder of the year. So, I mean, like the need for a starting pitcher is there, and Crochet makes sense. So I think that's absolutely a fit to watch here. But that being said, in terms of the report about packaging both Luis Robert Jr. and Garrett Crochet, that to me does not pass the smell test. I could be wrong, but my feeling is that the White Sox want to maximize value for both players, and by packaging them both, they would not be able to do so. I think both have a realistic chance of being moved, but in order for them to maximize value, they're going to have to be moved in separate deals. So I'd expect Crochet to go one place and then Robert Jr. to go another place. So I get the report, but to me, it doesn't pass the smell test. And I think the far more likely scenario is that they're moved separately. So that's where it stands right now.
And let me say, I just hate the smell test. It's one of my least favorite tests, and we're coming up on a trade deadline full of them. So I'll look forward to the day when I don't have to smell any of these things. But I do appreciate, obviously, the insight.
No, for sure. Hopefully, you don't mind the term "smell test," but yeah, I will not make you smell anything.
I love the term. I just don't like doing it.
No, neither do I. Unless it's like food, then I can vibe with that.
Well, all of that always passes the smell test, though. Usually smells good.
For sure.
Speaking of smelling a little bit better lately than earlier in the season, I put the Cincinnati Reds on this list because the run differential says this is a wild card contender, potentially a wild card favorite. But still, up until a couple weeks ago, it was, hey, are they going to sell Jonathan India out of this infield logjam, even though we don't know when Matt McLain's getting back? They were connected to the Yankees regarding a bunch of relievers too. And look, if you're the Reds and you're right in the middle, you should probably sell relievers. Everybody should sell relievers anyway in a seller's market. But it now seems like they're getting a little bit closer to buying rather than selling, or at least 70% buying, 30% selling, and keeping India. Let's say these Reds do buy. I mean, what does that look like? And what's your pulse on Cincinnati?
They're in a really interesting spot right now. They're 47-50, and They're in fourth place in the division. They're about 8 games out, but they're also pretty close for another wild card spot. And it absolutely has them in contention to try to like make a push for the postseason. And they can go in a couple different directions here. If they want to take advantage of a clear seller's market, they have a really good piece in Frankie Montas. Like they could, I don't know necessarily how much they could get in return for him, but he's a veteran starting pitcher who would surely attract interest. But if you do that, then you're going to signal to that clubhouse that you're not trying to win this year, and that could end up sending the wrong signals there. So my guess is they're going to be more inclined to buy the next 7 to 10 days, or actually the next 7 days. We're getting real close to the deadline here. I think we got 11 days to go. My guess is they're going to be more inclined to buy, and if they do end up buying, then they can end up looking at outfield help because they need reinforcements in that lineup for sure, and the outfield is the most clear path for doing so. So I think that's the area to watch. They also have an abundance of relievers, so maybe some team could try to entice them for that. Who knows? But if they buy, which I think is the most likely scenario, outfield is the place to watch.
Jesse Winker reunion. I'm just dot connecting. Just is that yapping or is that educated yapping? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how they feel about him at this point.
Yeah, that sounds like a good yap. I'll give you that. That's good yapping, Adam.
Thank you. Passes the yap test. Passes the yap test for sure.
Hopefully you support that test.
That's one of my. You asked for a Mount Rushmore test. Yap test is top of the list. I mean, yap test is basically what we do on this show 3 times a week until the deadline. And you're right though. I keep saying like 3 times a week till the deadline. We're gonna be live. That's one more week. The deadline we have.
Yeah, the deadline got here sneaky quick. Like honestly, the first half of the entire season ended up like scooting by pretty good. So yeah. I don't know. I hope it slows down because I want to at least enjoy the second half of the year.
Yeah, end of July got here sneaky quick. I'm kind of pissed at July. July 4th was like, I mean, it was 2 weeks ago, but it feels like I don't know. It feels like
ages ago.
Yeah. I will be. I do like putting stuff on the calendar and being able to look forward to it. Though I have a pretty fun Phillies game and Trey Turner bobblehead and tailgate coming up next Friday night. So that's been on my calendar for a while with some good friends. I've been checking my watch, checking the cal, and the fact that that's a week away is really tripping me out. But I am excited either way.
No, you should be excited. By the way, it looks like MLB Deadline News has awoken from his slumber. Hello, MLB Deadline News.
You're here in time for the YAP test, and probably the most important name on the YAP test. I put the A's as the 5th team here, and right after this, we got double A's chat briefly, and then I'm gonna go into the comments because we got some good ones before we sign off. But Mason Miller is probably the number one name that could change the entire market. I mean, Miller and Skubal, one of 12 of one, half dozen of the other, both massive game-changing talents. Skubal would have a bigger impact on the team that acquired him, but if the A's do decide to dangle Miller, could change everything. Brent Rooker still feels like he could be the steal of the deadline with all that control. The Braves need an outfielder, even though he's more of a DH. Braves and A's have linked up for Murphy, for Olsen. We know the Phillies like Rooker. What's your pulse on Oakland, who, again, also calling up Jacob Wilson, showing us a little spark of the future in Sacramento, I guess. But either way, Oakland stealing headlines at the tail end of this week and could steal more if they really decide to sell off some big pieces.
No, for sure. And Oakland, like to start off with calling up Jacob Wilson, I thought that was a pretty cool deal. He's a very talented young infielder. There's been questions about his bat, but overall in the minors, he's really kind of silenced those concerns.
He also like 490.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good. Yeah, and he's the 5th player from the first round of that draft class in 2023 that's been called up. It's been Nolan Shanuel, Wyatt Langford, Hurston Waldrop, and then also some guy named Paul Skeens. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of him. Yeah. So yeah, a pretty good company right there. And the A's, they are going to be plenty active here in the next week and a half. But I do not expect them to ultimately move Mason Miller. I would put that in a pretty highly unlikely category. I just don't think any team is going to meet the asking price for him, which is going to end up being very, very, very high. But that being said, this is my own opinion, my opinion only. If I was the Oakland A's, I would trade Mason Miller because you look at him obviously he wants to be a starting pitcher again. He's said that recently. He's 25. He's signed for the next 5 years. But right now is a closer on a team that is nowhere close to competing. And a team that is as bad as the A's does not need a closer. And if you trade Mason Miller and you can get an absolute haul in return for him and set yourself up for sustained success in the future, I think that's something that you absolutely should consider and ultimately do. I think it just makes so much sense for them. But I'm not under the impression that they're going to move Mason Miller. I think Brent Rooker is a more realistic trade candidate for them to move. The Phillies make sense. The Braves make sense. There's a lot of outfield needy teams that make sense for Brent Rooker. And there's some pitchers on the A's that make sense to be moved. A Lucas Erceg makes sense for bullpen needy teams among other players on that team. I just don't expect it to be Mason Miller. I'd be really surprised if he ended up moving.
I would as well, and I'd also it just never lines up. Like the price that someone's gonna have to pay for Mason Miller is not gonna be worth it, but you're gonna pat yourself on the back because you have Mason Miller, but you might also look back with regret. Either way, the ATHs from the schedule release in 2025 have a good one. Not Sacramento, not Oak, just AF. So good for the AF. Couple of questions to hit on before we sign off. Good ones and teams that we haven't covered. Teams that we usually try to cover. I'm going to go to John Todd 22 first, who's asking if we could talk Angels fire sale. And we have a lot of people talking about, hey, how does the Harvey deal affect Estevez, et cetera? I know Estevez is a rental, all of that. Angels forever have sort of felt like they should trade this whole lot of folks, but maybe they'll only trade their rentals, even if they won't, expand their horizons to Taylor Ward, Moniak, Adele, what have you. What's your latest read on the Angels, knowing full well that this could all change by the time we wake up on Monday?
Yeah, it could definitely change. And it truly, this is no exaggeration when I say this, it legit depends on how Artie Moreno wakes up a certain day. That's how unpredictable the Angels are. But at the end of the day, I expect of the players that you ended up listing there, John, I would expect Tyler Anderson to go, and I would also expect Carlos Estevez to go. Luis Rengifo, I'm still uncertain whether or not he's ultimately moved. Same with Taylor Ward. His poor performance recently, I believe, has kind of cooled interest around the league. So that is currently where things stand there. But I expect Anderson to be moved. I think there's plenty of teams that make sense for him. Before the Brewers ended up getting Aaron Savale, I thought Tyler Anderson made a lot of sense for them. The Brewers are still in the market for pitching, so I guess you can't necessarily rule it out. But Anderson makes a lot of sense for Brewers and plenty of other teams. Estevez, like the comments before asking about him and Hunter Harvey, like the difference between those guys. Estevez is obviously a rental at the end of the year. And then Hunter Harvey is he's signed for another year and a half, which that added year of control makes him infinitely more valuable. With Estevez's performance, I think he'll end up being like with Estevez's performance and how good he's been. I think he'll end up getting like a decent piece back, but I don't expect it to be a high end prospect. MLB deadline news. I am glad you asked that. That is a very good question by you. It's complicated how I want to word this one. Like, there's teams that are plenty interested in Taylor Ward, but his recent struggles, there's been no, to my knowledge, some of those talks that were happening have kind of cooled a little bit. So that's currently where things stand there.
Yeah. So possible, correlation, causation, what have you. But either way, teams were talking. Ward took a downturn.
Yeah. And then the Angels' price remains high on Ward still. So, I mean, that also really kind of complicates things as well. As far as what AJ Preller's looking for, Andrew, hello, by the way. I saw your comment before, being angry that I didn't say hello. Changing that now. Preller he's plenty active. He's looking for starting pitching. He's looking at bullpen help. I think offensive reinforcements make sense as well. He's been plenty active. But my feeling with the Padres is that they were one of those teams that was waiting for the draft to be over before fully diving into the trade deadline. I think it's going to end up being a few days before they can ultimately have those talks progress. But I expect Preller to be plenty active. He's not going to go out and make 10 moves by any means, but I think they do have at least a little bit of flexibility in San Diego there.
What about these Marlins names? Anthony Manzano doing a good job of naming some additional Marlins, because we all talk about Tanner Scott. We know he's going. It's a matter of when, not if. But Andrew Nardi, AJ Puck, the Marlins do have some enticing names in the bullpen. Have you heard anything about teams asking Miami about their back-end relievers?
Yeah, as far as AJ Puck, I understood the logic behind the trade when they ended up getting Puck in exchange for JJ Bleday. But that trade has not worked out for the Marlins at all. Puck has struggled this year. He's got an ERA that's around 4.7 right now, and his value just is not where what they had hoped for. So I think if they traded him now, they'd be selling low. So I'm not going to ever rule out a trade there, but I think that's kind of rather unlikely. And as far as Andrew Nardi as well, last year he was very good for them. In 63 appearances, he ended up putting up a 2.67 ERA. But this year, in 44 games, he's got an ERA that's about 5.3. That's another case where you're selling low. He's also, if you look at him, he is 25 years old, and he's not a free agent until 2029. That is not a guy that you sell right now. I think those guys end up kind of staying put. But Tanner Scott, I think he's about as good as gone. Let's see. As far as an asking price in return for Tanner Scott, it's not going to be what Hunter Harvey got, because Scott's a free agent at the end of the year. And so I expect him to get at least one decent piece in return, but it's not going to be the Hunter Harvey haul.
Which is a shame, because as we all know, Tanner Scott, Marlins rep at the All Star Game, you want to think you'd be able to sell him in this wild market. Teams that wanted Tanner Scott probably should have gotten him this spring when he couldn't find the plate, by the way, but you let the Marlins hold on to him. Now they keep the leverage, and he's going to be gone, but it'll cost you. What about Armand? Any Mets rumors besides the bullpen? It's been a while since we've talked Mets. When we talk New York, it's mostly just me ranting about the Yankees and their 8-18 record closing the first half or what have you. But what about these Mets who, buyers, sellers, either way, I think you have to trust what David Stearns is up to because it's working.
Oh, it absolutely is working. The Mets right now, they're 49-46. They're absolutely in a position now where they can buy. I think the bullpen is the obvious area for them to try to improve and add. And I think at this point now we can really kind of put to bed the Pete Alonso rumors. I think that's just not going to happen anymore. So that's the only kind of read that I have on the Mets right now. I think the next few days are going to be pretty important for them. So I should have more insight for the Mets on Monday, but that's my feel as of right now.
One final question as well, just because it was the chatter right before we signed on, the Craig Mish discussion of the Pirates and Marlins having that initial dialogue on Jazz. I'm going to assume again that it's every team who knows Jazz is available, which is every team should be having dialogue on Jazz, because why wouldn't you have dialogue on Jazz and every available player? But anything you're hearing from Pittsburgh and anything around that rumor, because as we know, Mish is one of the guys who we trust on this show.
Yeah, Craig Mish, he is a guy, when he says something, we listen, because Craig Mish is as plugged in on the Marlins as anybody. So I believe it when he says that the Marlins and Pirates have had exploratory talks about a Jazz Chisholm trade. But what I can say from Pittsburgh is that they have had conversations with a ton of teams that have hitters, and so it's not going to end up just being Taylor Ward or Jazz Chisholm that the Pirates are on. They're on an abundance of different guys. So I would not. It's just not limited to those two. But the Jazz Chisholm, him being transitioned to second base, was not an accident whatsoever. There was teams that had inquired, hoping to see him at second base, and lo and behold, there they are now. So it's about the most obvious showcase that you can ever imagine, because it's clear as day what the Marlins are trying to do. They're trying to show these teams that he can play second base before ultimately trading him. That's currently where it's at right now. But yeah, nothing is imminent as far as the Jazz Chisholm trade, but I expect him to go.
Yeah, Anthony, I assume when you're asking if we can address that final question that it was that Jazz chat. At this point, it's probably the teams that wanted to see him at second base that are theoretically having the most conversations about Jazz. In the past, we've said, keep your eye out for the Yankees, keep your eye out for the Mariners. But I think a lot of teams are probably watching that market very closely.
Oh, they're definitely watching it very closely. And MLB deadline news, when you say, but it wasn't trade related, it was absolutely trade related. If they're telling you otherwise, then they're lying to you. They made it clear with their actions, but it's clearly trade related. You can't sugarcoat it.
Love the way you lie, Miami Marlins. Well, we will see you right back here Monday at 3:30 Eastern. If you aren't in the Discord and you're interested, we'd love to have you. Just hit the join button right below the show. Sign up at the level you choose. Rumor Mill, you get Robert and I in there. You can ask us questions. All-Star, you get priority question responses in this chat. You can give us questions early. Also, it's just a little bit more of a private chat. You get a monthly Zoom with us. I did see someone asking in the comments if Biscuit was going to be returning to the Baseball Insiders anytime soon. Today's his birthday, guys. So I don't know. Should I just go and get him before we sign off? I mean, do you guys want to say happy birthday to Biscuit? Is that something you'd be interested in? He's won, so it's a big one.
So let's do it. Let's go say happy birthday to Biscuit.
All right, I'm going to bring Biscuit on the show, and we say happy birthday to Biscuit.
There we go. Well, I'm just glad Adam was wearing pants. That would make for some pretty awkward content. But here, while I'm here, let's answer some questions. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a Phillies fan. Phillies bias on the podcast. Oh,
yeah,
boy.
Phillies bandana for Mr. Biscuit today. If there are any other questions, we can't get to it, but Biscuit is going to say hello to you. Do you have any other questions that you were going to field?
No, I was going to look for them, but I think we answered them all, so that's good.
Yeah, I think we're
Happy
good.
Birthday, Biscuit.
Happy birthday to Biscuit. Get your happy birthdays in the chat. The big guy is 1 year old, and that's not a plural, so 1 year. What a king. We love this guy. And we love all of our commenters, so thanks for showing up. Thanks for demanding Biscuit, but more importantly, asking deadline questions. We'll see everybody right back here, 3:30 Eastern on Monday, and then again on Wednesday, and then again on Friday, parsing through all the buzz that we get in the meantime, hopefully a lot over the weekend because we're getting close.
You will also see me again. I will be in a different location for Monday. I'll be in Scottsdale, but then Wednesday and Friday I'll be in San Diego. So I'll have another different location for the Baseball Insiders. But I will be in San Diego. I'll be chilling, doing my thing, working the phones, trying to get scoops for you guys. Andrew, what am I having for lunch? It's a good question. I'm either gonna have chicken tenders or I'm gonna have a ribeye. I don't know which one yet. Both good choices. Definitely cannot complain with that. It's bulking season, baby. It is the season.
Yeah. I gotta get some dinner. I'll be eating at Citi Field. They got good food, so I've heard. I don't know what they have open for the Foo Fighters versus the games, but either way, eating good tonight.
Also, I just got this on my phone. I got a free medium 2-topping pizza from Pizza Hut coming. So that could end up being a scheme.
And that's no yap. That is not yap. So
that's not yap. That is straight facts.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, commenter, I'll see you at the Foo Fighters. Yeah, let's go.
There we go. Mongo. It's gonna be a Baseball Insiders meetup there.
Yeah, find me. I have no idea where I'm sitting, but find me. I'll be there.
There we go. And then also, Andrew, uncooked rice, raw minute rice is the most superior version of rice. I want to make that abundantly clear in the podcast. Uncooked rice is better than cooked rice. Fight me.
Yeah, show up in the Discord if you want to talk about it, because I know Robert's very open to talking about that. It's not the first time he's mentioned that.
No, it's definitely not the first time I've mentioned it. Won't be the last time. But uncooked rice is elite. Anyone who says otherwise is wrong. So that's where I stand on it now. But I'm hungry. Time for me to eat some food.
Yep, raw, uncut, unfiltered. That's what you get on this show, and we will see you all right back here on Monday, 3:30, with more of it. Until then, take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.